And then Duke looks to be the juggernaut of the bunch. Are you in favor of Alabama maintaining some momentum here, or are they going to run into a screeched halt in just about 24 hours?
I think it could end up being the de facto championship game. I think it's
Wow, you're that high in
these two
Bama.
teams.
Wow.
Oh, absolutely. Look, their explosiveness. They're the most explosive team in the tournament, and Duke is the most complete team in the tournament. When you combine those two things, we're in for a heck of a battle. Look, with Alabama, are they going to make 25 threes tomorrow night? No. But this is a team that can get you thrown. Yeah, go ahead.
No, sorry, partner. It's a bit of delay on my end. I was going to say, how good is Flagg, John? You mentioned Alabama. You mentioned the threes and whatnot that they're able to do. I look at the other side of the court for Duke. I think they have the best player, and I think it's that simple.
No, I think Duke will win. I think Duke will win this game, and I do think that they'll win the national championship. But I think that they'll get tested along the way. If they get Alabama and Houston in their next two games, Houston can lock you down defensively. It can make you play a real grinder of a game, and that's what it may take. Half-court basketball, look, playing close to a perfect game offensively. They've got the shot making to give Duke some problems. Just hanging in and grinding the game down. Alabama's not going to do that. But they can put pressure on Duke. Here, to your Cooper Flagg question. Cooper Flagg is the best freshman in college basketball that I've covered, and I think he's in the top two. It's either him or Carmelo Anthony for the best freshman in the last 25 years. Cooper Flagg is going to be a 15-year NBA All-Star and an NBA champion.
Yeah, I completely agree. And the one thing that makes me nervous about Duke is towards the end of games, they have movement, but a lot of it is just like, hey, Coop, here's the ball. Go make something happen. Luckily, when they did that against Kentucky at the early part of the year, Cooper wasn't really ready for that, Flagg that is. But nowadays, he is such a better player than he was even 5 months ago. He was a first-round pick. 5 months later, he is such a more complete basketball player. He is a threat. Now, John, I want to get one more thought on the games from last night before we move on to tonight. From my perspective here, I'm sitting here after the games last night. I didn't like how late they were, but I wanted to get your thoughts on the Maryland-Florida game. Maryland probably with the five-man lineup out-rebounded by Colorado State. They're going to get out-rebounded by Florida. Probably never had a chance in the game, but now all of a sudden the storyline around Maryland was what Kevin Willard, their head coach, was going to do.
Right.
And he handled it poorly, I thought, post-game. He handled poorly, I thought, throughout the week. What was your takeaway, and what is your prediction on what Kevin Willard, that Maryland job, have we seen the last of him with Maryland? Or does he truly not know what he's going to do? Or do you think this Villanova thing really has some roots?
Well, Maryland is on the plane back from San Francisco right now. Could you imagine a longer flight with this situation hanging over you? It's all dependent on whether or not Willard sat in the exit row. No, I'm just kidding. The fact is,
like a parachute.
It's in the doghouse, Johnny, in the doghouse.
It's a really interesting situation, guys. I mean, look, Villanova has the basketball pedigree and tradition. It's a basketball-first school. They've got deep pockets. They've won 2 national championships in the last decade. Of course, Jay Wright built a monster. Kevin Willard faced that monster for a number of years. He and Jay Wright became rivals. The one team that gave Villanova problems in the Big East year in and year out was Kevin Willard's Seton Hall teams. They beat Villanova in the 2016 Big East Tournament Championship game. Villanova proceeded to win the national championship. So that friendship dates back a while. Kevin loved New Jersey. Villanova, certainly closer and not far from the Jersey Shore for him and his family and his 2 boys and his wife, Julie. I think there's a bunch of things that have come into play. The main one, to me, there's 2 things that signal why this relationship with Maryland could end. Number one, in January, Willard complained about his Big Ten schedule. His athletic director at the time, Damon Evans, came out and said, "We don't complain at Maryland about scheduling. Go and win games." That was a red flag. You're supposed to back up your coach. Number 2, he asked the university. Now, this is elementary, guys, but, you guys know this. You're around sports enough. Sometimes the stupidest stuff can cause big problems. He asked the university for his team to stay in New York City an extra night and go see a show in New York and celebrate Christmas as a program. I believe to get out there an extra day earlier. They played a game in Brooklyn, and he wanted to do one extra night with his team for a team activity. The university said, I'm sorry, due to budget, we can't do that. Are you kidding me? You're a Big Ten school. Who cares? It's one night in a hotel and going to a show. Do you know what some of these programs spend on their different events and different things? You guys have seen the video of Alabama out on the water and Ohio State doing crazy things during the summer.
Right.
Like, come on, man. That's small town. That's small time. I think that's where Kevin's like, look, I need to pay for a roster, but if I'm not allowed to control my program, why am I here? Why am I doing this? So if he does leave, which I still think it's 70-30, 70 Villanova, I do think it's 30 Maryland. If he leaves, he's leaving because, unfortunately, Maryland operated too corporatized to his liking, and he'd rather go to Villanova, a small Catholic school where he would be king.
Johnny, do you think if he goes to Villanova, with how college basketball is now with the NIL, is he an immediate threat to Pitino, to Hurley, to everybody in that conference?
Yes. Anybody as the Villanova head coach should be. Kyle Metsoon, was the guy to replace Jay Wright. You guys know this. You never want to be the guy who replaces the guy. You want to be the guy who replaces the guy who replaces the guy. So that would be Willard here in this role. And, yes, he would be an immediate threat to Dan Hurley, Rick Pitino. You know why? Those Villanova people drink a lot of wine, they play a lot of golf, they eat a lot of cheese, and they love watching basketball. And as a result, they've got deep pockets, and they got a lot of suit and tie events. I can tell you guys, that is a donor base that has seen success. And when you've tasted national championships, I think we'd all agree, in terms of brands in college basketball, disagree with me if you'd like, I'd still put Villanova with their last decade of success under Jay, even though the last couple of years has been tough. I'd still put them as a top 10 to 12 identifiable brand to guys our age in college hoops.
I agree with that in the sense that Nova is still like a top-tier job. Now, I think maybe we're starting to lean more and more into the fact that it might have been just Jay, but to your point, they've won championships. They get it. They get it. Now, John, you're a big East guy. I swear to God, I'm a UConn guy. Every UConn game I tuned into, you're on the call. So you're as attached to the Big East as anybody. Are you worried about that conference in any sense? With no football money, teams shifting in or out. Are you worried about that in any sense with the realignment of college sports? I'm curious.
I am not. I am not, because in basketball, they're going to have more money to spend than some of these football-driven schools, at least in the imminent future. With the way the revenue sharing is set up, and this is something that I don't think the casual people are really tuned in on, and that's not a problem, but that's why we have these conversations. Guys, you need to circle this date on your calendar right now, Monday, April 7th, the day of the national championship game in basketball. On that day, on Capitol Hill, the House settlement case, that will all be either resolved or postponed. There's an anticipation that revenue sharing gets passed in college sports. If revenue sharing gets passed, each athletic department, so Ohio State, Florida, William and Mary, Elon, Charleston, UCLA, Washington, Creighton, all these schools throughout the country, Cleveland State, will have up to, they're not going to, Cleveland State's not going to use it. They don't have this kind of funding.
Go Vikings, Johnny. Go Vikings, Johnny.
We'll have, go Vikings. We'll have up to $20-ish million to distribute to their athletic teams. So you know what Ohio State's going to do? Ohio State's going to say, perfect, $17 million to the football team. And the basketball team's going to say, wait a minute, what? Yeah, you guys are fine. Like $3 million good? $3.5 million good? Well, wait a minute, what about us? Okay, well, have you made the tournament recently? No. Okay, well, what have your results been? Well, we've been okay. Okay, our football team's the best in America, and we need to make sure it stays that way. And, our football team has a lot more players than your basketball team. Let's flip the case. UConn. Okay, well, how's your football team? Well, pretty good. All right, fine. But are we going to ever win a national championship? Well, no. All right, so let's fund the roster with